I started this video already once before. Okay, so he's down, but I left my tripod up in his room, and I'm not going back up for it. But that's okay, because sometimes it's an art form in itself to find a tripod in nature. An art form I like to call the art of the tree pod. When you put your camera on a tree. Well, let me start this journey back a little bit. When I'm dyslexic, so my specifically, which dyslexia can mean a lot of things. Thank you very much. I don't read anything backwards, but I do have, among many little things, the big thing is comprehension. So I don't really read books ever. If the material is interesting enough, or if I've seen a movie based. If I see the movie first and then I read the book, my knowledge of the movie helps me understand, helps kind of pull me through that comprehension. Books that I've actually read through are Holes, Devil in the White City. That's probably it in terms of books that I've physically read. Pet Sematary, Stephen King's Pet Sematary. But in terms of literature that I've consumed, it's actually a much, much higher number than the 3 or 4 that I just named off. And that's mostly because of one thing: books on tape. I'm a very auditory person. I love podcasts. I love lectures. I can listen to a lot of things. And even as a kid, I really loved audiobooks because I really wanted to read books. My dad was an avid reader when I was young, and my mom always read, and I just always associated reading with intelligence and also with reading Rainbow. He would talk about how great books are, and you can discover a whole world through books. Well, I felt like I was out of the club. So books on tape were pretty magical to me because I could go to the Amherst Town Library and I could pick out a book on tape of something that people were reading, and I would go through lots of them. I'd actually sit on the floor and carve pieces of crayon with my thumbnail. I don't know why that was I'd sit and do that while I listened to audiobooks, and I'd sit on the floor in my bedroom. I listened through tons of things: Series of Unfortunate Events, this book on owls, it's so many things. Anyways, that sort of fell away. I would just life. And then I obviously got really into podcasts because that was just sort of the next step. And I never really got back into audiobooks until about 2 years ago. The summer of the pandemic, I got an Audible account from Amazon, and I began listening to a book called Sapiens, which that author has been a complete life changer in terms of ideology. I think about his work and his words so much. I've actually listened to that book a couple times, but this is not why I'm talking about it. The problem with Audible was that it was so expensive. They just have this credit system, and it's kind of pricey, and I just kept thinking I don't know, podcasts are free, and whatever, it's not worth it. But then I heard about this app called Libby that uses your library, because just as you can imagine, libraries now borrow out digital media too. So you can rent stuff for your Kindle. You can get a digital copy of a book and put it on your Kindle, or you can get a digital copy of an audiobook. And so I had heard of Libby, but it had been so long since I used the Milford Town Library that I as you know from a few videos ago, recently reinstated my library card. And I now have access to this giant archive of every book that's available digital media through the state of New Hampshire. So it's completely free, and I have access to not only books that I could put on my Kindle if I choose to do so, but I have a massive catalog of audiobooks available to me for free. It's still like a library. You have to borrow stuff, you have to return it in 2 weeks, you can only borrow 3 things at a time, and some things are on hold. So there's a couple books that I'm on a hold list for. But other than that, it just going and seeing this it blows my mind. I don't know who would ever mess with Audible anymore. And now that I know this, don't ever mess with Audible. So I would say if you're somebody who likes to read, or you're interested in audiobooks, I would show your public library some love. Go down and get your free friggin' card and access this dank library. It's insane. I've already been listening to a couple books. I just finished A Long Way from Chicago, which is a young adult book that I've thought about so much over the years. I listened to it when I was a kid, And I think about it now that I have a child of my own. It's kind of about this kid or this brother and this sister, and they go to their grandma's house every weekend. It takes place in the 30s, and they go to like this town, and she, like, I don't know, their grandma reminds me so much of my own mother in a lot of ways, and just her house reminds me so much of the camp that my mom is actually at currently. And there's just so many aspects that remind me of my childhood. So I think about that book quite often. I listen to it again, and it was really good. And then I also finished a book called The Sixth Extinction. And that was about, obviously the 5 extinctions of history, and sort of looking at archaeology and what we can look at in terms of what this next extinction looks like, and how we're sort of in it. We're in an incredible, there's so many insane facts within that. Like some of the stuff that stood out to me is that on average, for one species out of every 700 will go extinct, or one species every 700 years will go extinct. And right now we're at a rate, I'm going to get this fact wrong. Whatever. I can't remember I actually can't remember the ratio. It doesn't matter. That's a really good book. And now I'm currently listening to 21 Life Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari, who wrote Sapiens and Homo Deus. And it's fantastic. It's great. But I'm just here to say, PSA, go to your library, get your library card, download Libby. Don't pay Amazon. Instead, support your public library. You pay for it. I think it's a good thing. It's good for the community. They're not. I don't know. It's just better. It's incredible. And I mean, you saw, I went and got movies and stuff that that I've been wanting to watch, but isn't on Netflix or any streaming service, and I just went down to the library and got them. I mean, this isn't like new information. It's one of those things where something's good, but then you do it again, and you're like, why don't I do this all the time? It's one of those things. So, okay, that's enough talking. 7 minutes and 22 seconds.